Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, action.
Assume nothing.
In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
Question everything.
God wouldn't steer you wrong.
I find it extremely hard to imagine.
Rash, bald-faced blasphemy.
Open your eyes.
What they do is stick their fingers in their ear and say la la la.
أشهد أن محمدا رسول
I put my faith in God above. Thank you, Jesus.
The truth shall set you free.
Engage your senses.
The fastest growing group of people in the country has been measured as being those who have no belief or who are atheists.
Overcome your fear.
It is quite all right to be an atheist.
Challenge the opposition.
You don't have to be apologetic or quiet about it.
Embrace the truth.
You see religion on 100 fronts losing the argument.
And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist worldwide.
First of all, everybody who sent in well wishes for Christopher Hitchens, I want to say thank you. It was an amazing outpouring of support for a man in time of need. And it's one of those things where I was amazed and really humbled by the goodwill that atheists are showing. You know, those who don't know what atheism is, they think we're all rudderless. They think we're all emotionless creatures. You know, we have no idea how to show compassion and love and support and encouragement. And those people, I'd love to sit them down and for 5 minutes show them the expressions of encouragement from the tribute. One thing I did notice that was really amazing about the Hitchens tribute, for every 100 people who took the high road and said something wonderful and rich and loving and magnanimous and supportive and encouraging, there was someone else who said something like this. They said, "Christopher, you're an insufferable snob, a bore, a bully, a corrupt journalist, a pompous windbag, a capitalist puppet, a hack, a warmonger. I think you're a complete waste of space. We disagree on everything. But I just wanted to call and say, get well, sir." You know, it's just this unbelievable preface of venom. And I'm thinking to myself, why? Why do you have to go there? The purpose of the video was not for you to have a forum to tell you what a scumbag he is. The purpose was to encourage a man in time of trouble, in time of crisis. It goes far beyond whether or not you agree with his stance on this or that, or the war, or capitalism, or what have you. Whether or not you think he's a good author, or speaker, or a snob, or an elitist, or whatever. It's about supporting a man who is in a fight of his life. And for those of you who understood that mission, I say thank you, and I appreciate it. You know, we have to learn as atheists, we have to learn that we don't always have to throw our opinions out in front of a kind gesture. We don't always have to have a billboard up. Many in the religious community will do that. When they do something great for someone else, they'll have to start by saying, "I'm doing this in the love of Jesus or God." But, you know, we don't have to go out there and have a soapbox to do something kind for someone else. If you haven't seen the tribute for Christopher Hitchens, I would encourage you to check it out on our page at, just go to YouTube and type in The Thinking Atheist. Our special guest this hour is a controversial figure as well. And Zinnia Jones intrigues me. I mean, think about it. I'm this white bread, Midwestern, corn-fed, heterosexual male. You know, I'm just as boring and stereotypical as they come. And yet, one person out there who is a champion of the same belief system that I am is so different than me. You know, the Chicago-based Zinnia Jones. A guy who dresses in bright red lipstick and earrings and blurs on purpose the gender line. You say, do I call you a he or a she? And even the website says, just pick one. Well, that fascinates me. I put something about Zinnia Jones on my Facebook, and the comment section went nuts. Everybody had an opinion, whether it's good or it's bad. And I thought, well, what the hell? Let's get ZJ on the phone, and let's create a conversation where we talk about gender issues. We talk about atheism and God and dealing with family, and let's bring up the mosque in New York and stir the pot and see what people have to say about that. Let's take some of your phone calls and see what you'd like to say, any questions you'd like to ask, or comments. All I ask about the phone calls is that you keep them tight, get to the point, so we can get to as many calls as possible. ZJ, are you on the line with me?
I'm here.
It's something that, I hate to say it like this, but you have kind of a brand. I mean, when people see your face, they say, that's ZJ. You know, when they hear your voice, that's ZJ. There's something about the presence you've given off on your YouTube page that's really set you off. How long have you been doing this?
I started back in November of 2008, and back then I didn't look anything like I look now, and I didn't even plan any of this. I just felt like doing some videos one day, so I just started doing that.
Was it atheist-related stuff?
It was some atheist stuff. It was just generally any topics that interested me. It's just like, you know, the normal people who go on YouTube, share their thoughts, and vlog about whatever. There was no real direction to it at first, but I did explore some atheist topics, some gay rights topics, politics, that sort of thing. And eventually I kind of found my groove there, and I started, you know, developing it into a more sort of coherent thing and just sort of refining my message.
What caused the change? People began immediately to question the gender thing, and I'm not saying you stirred the pot, but you sure aren't shying away from it, you know? I mean, you just play along with it.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, at first, you know, I still got people who, like, when they first found me, they were like, are you a boy or a girl, or that sort of thing.
How did that make you feel?
I didn't even care. I mean, you know, it's the Internet. You get all sorts of people. I mean, when you go to YouTube, you can't help but expect people are going to criticize you for literally everything. The people are totally nuts. So, but it didn't bother me or anything. That's just how people are. And eventually, you know, I just thought it was funny. I mean, you really think I'm a girl? So I just started to play along with it.
I know you're an advocate for gay rights, and we may talk about some of the issues that speak to, and here in America, we were doing a show called Mad as Hell, and I don't know how many times the gay rights issue came up as a matter of being persecuted by the religious community. And you've probably seen a lot of that, right? The Bible says homosexuality is wrong, and it must be condemned and defeated. You probably catch a whole lot of that on your page.
Absolutely. I get that all the time. I mean, I really do think that's one of the main sources, if not the main source for it. It's religion that's behind all this anti-gay sentiment. I mean, it takes people's homophobic attitudes, which they might already have on their own just due to culture or whatever, and then it just gives them this divine imprimatur. Like, they can say that being gay is wrong and bad and sinful and you're going to hell, and they do it with the perceived authority of a deity, and that is significant here.
I used to be just like it, DJ. I mean, I used to do the very same thing. I think for me, it was mostly when I was younger, and there was a lot of fear. You know, I don't understand the culture. It's different than me. I personally am not attracted to men. You know, I don't understand it. I can't empathize. And then when you have someone saying, well, by the way, Almighty God says that he's destroyed entire cities for this kind of behavior, and these people are hell-bound. I mean, there's a stigma there, and it took me a long time to overcome. And you know what happened in my life is one of the best friends I had on this planet. I mean, we've known each other for 25 years. Announced that he was gay, and I remember being devastated. I remember thinking, what do I do with this information? And over the course of time, I began to think, this is the same guy who's been my best friend forever. I mean, he's got a huge heart, a great work ethic. He loves his friends. He loves his family. He's an honest, moral, upright, wonderful guy. What am I upset about? He's loving another human being? Is that the biggest thing on this planet I have to get freaked out about? I don't know what the secret was for me. It took a number of years before I began to really realize that the problem wasn't him. The problem was me. Have you managed to break any walls down in your circle?
I think that's a significant part of it, actually. I mean, coming out means just informing people that someone they know, someone they love, someone they appreciate is gay, and there's nothing really different or wrong about that. It creates a sort of ripple effect. Now there are just so many more people who know someone who's gay and who is a good person, just the same person as before. It's no longer something threatening. It's no longer like there's some kind of abstract, threatening other. I came out to my family. I waited many years to do that, just to, you know, be sure of it, and I kind of thought that if I came out when I was younger, they might not take me seriously. But they've been very accepting. Even my dad has, and honestly, I wasn't expecting that from him, but I was very impressed with that, and everyone seems to be okay with it.
Wait, was your family a religious family?
We weren't always highly religious. Here's basically my religious history in a nutshell. I was baptized in the Catholic Church when I was a baby. We started going to the Catholic Church regularly from when I was like 5 or 6 until when I was maybe 10 or 11. I had my first communion there, but it was never anything really serious for us, and it was just a big and impersonal and solemn and boring kind of place that, you know, you just sit there and be serious for an hour, and there's nothing really important to it, though. It wasn't, like, really significant in our lives. We weren't, like, especially devout. Then when I was 10 or 11 or so, we switched churches because my mom's friends started going to another church. I know that's a great reason to, like, switch religions and everything. All your friends were doing it. When we went to the new church was a Lutheran church. It was a smaller church. It was a more conservative denomination, and I mean conservative in the, you know, young earth creationist sense, the hell is a real place sense, the being gay is wrong sense, and this is something people probably won't even believe, but when I was that age, I actually believed them when they said that being gay was wrong. You know, like an unthinking idiot for a while when I was 11 or 12, I thought, oh, that must mean being gay is wrong. And then, like...
No, I think you were a kid. I mean, I don't think young people, I think they process the information that's given to them by their peers and by the guardians placed over them. It doesn't make you stupid. I think we program our young people to believe a certain way. You know, you've just been taught that your whole life so far.
That is true. I mean, I kind of hold myself to a high standard in terms of my beliefs, though. But anyway, that is correct what you say. I mean, children are basically programmed to just listen to what adults say and take it as fact. And when you teach them religion, I consider that especially, you know, dangerous to their health because it sort of blurs the line between what's real and what isn't real.
What was harder on your folks, you coming out as gay or you coming out as an atheist, or both? Did you do it both at once and just get it over with?
Honestly, I don't think either of them were especially hard on them. I mean, one was harder on me, which was coming out as gay, but the one time when I did come out was when I was in the emergency room in like the summer of 2008, and my mom was there with me because, you know, it's the emergency room, you want to have someone there. And this nurse comes by, just asks me, do you drink? No. Do you smoke? No. What's your religion? None. And I just said that without thinking, you know. I mean, it wasn't like I was going to say Christian or whatever. And yeah, and my mom was kind of taken aback by that for a moment, but I think it was good that I did it at that time because, you know, when you're in the emergency room, there are higher priorities than, you know, getting all pissed off about someone's religion or lack thereof.
What kind of overall input do you get on your website? Is it 50-50, love and hate? I mean, what kind of response are you getting when you're stirring the pot in your circle?
I wouldn't be surprised if, like, overall, probably more of it is negative, just random offhanded comments from people who, like, call me a faggot or whatever. You know, there are lots of people who don't like what I'm saying, and whatever. They love to let me know that, too.
Does the get up and the red lipstick help you get attention to the content and the context of what you're saying, or do you think it distracts people? Do you think all they're looking at is the makeup?
It cuts both ways, really. I mean, it is like developing, you know, a sort of unique image that people can more or less identify with, and sometimes they less identify with. Sometimes it's kind of off-putting, but I like to attract the kind of people who can either look past that or even appreciate it and just listen to what I'm saying.
Before I go to the phones, what's the majority of the content on your site? Is it mostly atheist-related?
I would say, yeah, probably a large portion of it is atheism-related. Another large portion of it is gay rights and politics-related. And a smaller portion of it is just, you know, whatever crazy stuff I like to come up with.
Where did the fire in your belly regarding atheism come from? Did you just decide I can't sit still on this information anymore and I've got to get it out?
Absolutely. I mean, what really started this, and like I said, I started this in November of 2008, one of the things that really tipped me over the edge here, I had realized for some time that religion was just total nonsense. But what pushed me over the edge was Proposition 8 passing in California. What bothered me so much about it was the massive contributions of Mormons to that effort. Under the direction of their church leadership, they were instructed to contribute to the effort to pass Prop 8. They gave millions and millions of dollars. They worked as volunteers, and the entire reason they were for this, for banning gay marriage, is because of their mythology and because of their ridiculous fictional stories from Joseph Smith. Now gay people actually can't get married in California. It really struck me that something so insane and so obviously wrong was nevertheless having such a terrible real impact on the world. That was when it really became real for me. This is a problem. And at that point, it really did just become impossible for me to just sit there and not say anything about it. This is the kind of thing that needs to be addressed, and directly.
There's a lot of opinions about the mosque in New York. I take a lot of heat for the fact that I personally oppose it. Where do you stand on the proposed mosque in New York? Where are you at on that? I know you did a whole video on the subject.
I think it should be allowed, even though I'm not personally in favor of it. The only reason I oppose it is just on the general principle that religious buildings are unnecessary, and whatever functions they fulfill, there's probably a better use for whatever effort they would put into that building and everything associated with it. But I don't oppose it on the specific principle of any particular connection between the specific religion and the location of it.
I'll tell you where I fall, and I take a lot of heat for this because there's so much room for disagreement. So take it with a grain of salt. If you don't agree, don't send me hate mail. Just let's agree to disagree, everybody. But where I fall is this, is that I believe that if the Quran is the foundational document for Islam, and the Quran essentially says that if I don't convert, I'm to be exterminated as the infidel, even if you are what they call a peace-loving Muslim, meaning that you don't necessarily take that part of the Quran literally, or you kind of skip over it, or it's not a big deal. Well, I'm sorry, part of your foundational document of belief says that I have to believe as you do. You're supposed to go and convert me and take over, and if I don't, I'm dead. To me, that falls well outside of the bounds of a religion. I mean, even the Quran says that Allah doesn't have to serve any government. I'll look at the script here in just a second, but the idea that they take a site so close to where so many died at the hands of Muslim extremists, and their foundational document says, look, you really are supposed to convert to Islam, or we can have you killed. I got a problem with that. I mean, where am I wrong?
I totally understand that, actually, and I think that's a great reason to oppose that religion in particular. And, at the same time, there's also Christianity and Judaism with, all that insanity in the Old Testament about conquering people's lands, convert or die, anyone who follows another religion, kill them, and Christianity something like it's going to be the end of the world and God is going to kill most of the people and they're going to, burn in a lake of fire forever. I mean, I oppose all of those as well. So I totally understand being opposed to any religion like that.
It's in Surah 9:3. It says, Allah is not bound by any contract or treaty with non-Muslims, nor is his apostle. Meaning that if you go by the letter of their foundational document, and we do anything that is not Islamic or approved by Allah, then they don't have to abide by it. Well, I'm sorry. If you're going to live here in America, you need to abide by the laws and the rules that govern the country. It's just the way it is. Love it or hate it. And it sounds to me like, they want to express tolerance, but they really don't want to have to worry about tolerating anyone else. I mean, just look at how the Muslim faith treats, especially radical Islam, treats women. It's abhorrent to me. My first call is going to be from Atheist. Did I say it right?
Eric, I think it was a bit wrong.
Sorry about that. What can I say?
I can't spell out things in English because I'm Swedish, so I want to excuse my language.
That's all right. Chicks on this radio show love accents, so it's perfect. Go for it.
Yeah, as you might know, here in Sweden, it's a Christian country, but most of the population don't believe in God or have a no opinion in the matter. But still some things that I want to say that I'm glad for Zinnia to, now I can't get any good way to say it, but even here without religious people can be pretty hard on homosexuals, and I most want to give thumbs up and say keep on being yourself and don't let people drag you down.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, it's good to have support from people. It's very encouraging to know that there are people who actually like my stuff and like what I'm doing.
Have you found that Let me ask a question just straight out, because I really don't know. And I'm curious to get your perspective. Are people born gay, or is it a choice?
I think it is, to a large degree, innate. I mean, I think that's been borne out by studies that the genetic component of it, there may be something there to some degree, even if we don't know specifically where it is, but also to some degree the prenatal influence, the environment in the womb, exposure to certain hormones that determine whether a person is going to be straight or gay or somewhere in the middle or transgender and that sort of thing. I don't think it's a choice, to be certain. I mean, I always thought that was kind of obvious. I mean, you can ask straight people, when did you choose to be attracted to the opposite sex? People don't make, conscious level decisions on who or what they are going to be attracted to. That's the sort of thing that's largely out of conscious control. I mean, to think that someone would choose to be attracted to the same sex or the opposite sex, on what basis would you even make such a decision? And if one had the ability to make such a decision, then that would imply that one is equally capable from the outset of being attracted to either sex. So wouldn't that just make you born bisexual? I mean, the whole choice argument, I think, kind of collapses for that reason.
I have a gay friend who said to me once, why would I choose to be ostracized and stigmatized in my whole life? I mean, why would I have chosen this for myself? Because he came from a religious background, a very solid Christian home, and it was a traumatic thing when he announced that he was gay. And he, I think, felt like a load had been lifted, like, wow, I don't have to live this charade anymore. Now I get to be who I am. They believe that no one is born gay. It is only a choice. And I just disagree. Why in the world would he paint himself into a lifestyle that caused him so much pain in a culture that's still challenged when it comes to accepting homosexuality? I mean, why would he do that to himself unless it was hardwired in his body?
For some people in, some communities like that, being gay is practically a death sentence. Even they believe that, oh no, I'm gay, I'm going to hell. Even they believe that, and that's absolutely terrible. It's like something they would never choose in that situation. And some people are more open to it. I think sometimes I actually think it's kind of funny that just by being gay, I can automatically piss off so many closed-minded people. And, I have a relatively accepting family anyway. They'd accept me whether I was straight or gay. And so for me, I just kind of consider that, from my perspective, just a sort of lucky side effect. I mean, the kind of people that get bothered by the mere fact that someone is gay, those are the kind of people that I would probably want to irritate in the first place. I mean, if I could choose it, I could almost imagine choosing it just for that reason. But, as is, again, it's just a funny side effect.
Well, I don't mean to spend so much time, honestly, but it's something I've always wanted to address. It's something I personally am curious about, and I know that some of our listeners are, and some people just want to ask. I mean, they've always wanted to know, what are you thinking? What's going on in your mind? What is this decision meant for you? And so I thought I'd take a few minutes, and I appreciate you taking the time to address those issues. Let's go back to the phones and talk to Andy in Atlanta, Georgia. Hi, Andy. You are on The Thinking Atheist. What's up?
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I'm big fans of both of you, and I had a sort of a philosophical question I wanted to ask. My question is, how can we know if an abstract concept exists? For instance, does love truly exist? If I spent my entire life without ever experiencing love, and then I were to claim love does not exist, would my personal experience have any bearing on the reality in which two people have experienced genuine love for one another? Therefore, as an atheist, as someone who has never had a spiritual experience or ever tried to seek a personal relationship with God, upon what grounds do I have in claiming God does not exist when billions of people throughout present and in the past, belonging to many different faiths, have claimed to have a sense of spirituality? And so, the lack of physical evidence for God's existence aside, how do we explain the abstract concept of spirituality that many human beings can claim to regularly experience?
You want to jump in first?
That's an awesome question. I've actually addressed this before. I did a video on it called Does Love Exist? And it was basically aimed at the argument where, you ask people, if God exists, and they say something like, oh, does love exist, as if it's comparable. And what it collapses to is basically asking if abstract concepts exist and how can they be said to exist. My perspective on this is that abstract concepts only exist as long as they are implemented in the mind of a person. But that doesn't mean that they exist as something outside of the person. That's just something going on in their mind. Since love is basically that experience, then yes, if people experience love, then love does exist for them. But for spiritual experiences or alleged spiritual experiences, there's really no reason to think that's not just something going on in the brain too.
I think perception is reality. And the one thing about love, you can prove love. I think you see results and evidence of love in action and word and thought and feeling. But I think when it comes to, proving God, and again, we're talking about the benevolent, omniscient, omnipotent, loving God of the Bible or wherever, the fact that we would still have to have an argument as to whether he exists thousands and thousands, supposedly thousands of years into the age of the earth, for me is enough to disprove his existence. If he was truly omnipotent and omniscient, he would have come down and shaken hands and made sure that everybody on the planet knows who he is, what he says, what he looks like, what he wants, and when he wants it. And where love, you can see evidence of love in action every single day from atheist and believer alike. Let's go back to Heather in Florida. Hi, Heather. You're on The Thinking Atheist. What's up?
Hi. I was just going to ask a question. Actually, I wanted your thoughts on the atheist perspective on feminism and homophobia, which overlap quite extensively. And my feelings on this are that homophobia and misogyny are human traits, that they don't come from religion, but that religion is just something that people use as an excuse for them. And so I think that, isn't it possible that even if everybody tomorrow became atheists, that these things would still exist?
I think that's definitely possible. It is to some degree just, culturally inculcated. There are some people who become atheists. They realize that religion is false, but they don't quite outgrow the attitudes of misogyny and homophobia and so on. But to some degree, religion also really amplifies that by getting people together, in large groups and saying, hey, you hate these people, you think they're inferior, that's absolutely okay, and God wants you to hate them. You're right in doing that. And that has a significant effect on them, and that in turn just spreads it even more into the culture, and it's sort of self-reinforcing in a way, but I think on some level religion is definitely perpetuating that. Religion is probably the major source of attitudes that women are inferior, being gay is wrong, that sort of thing. And even if those attitudes are to some degree present in people innately, religion just takes that and turns it up to the nth degree. And you mentioned homophobia and misogyny too, and I think those are definitely correlated. A lot of the trouble that people have with gay men is that the perception that they're somehow taking on the role of a woman, which is viewed as inappropriate. They denigrate them with insults that are often intended for women. A lot of it, seems to derive from the perspective that being a woman is somehow bad or lesser or inferior. I think that's definitely connected on some level. And, for someone like me who is actually a gay man presenting as a woman, that really brings out the vitriol lurking there from practically every direction of that.
To me, it's religion is a product of our imagination, so they just imagine it in a way that would fit what they wanted. You see what I'm saying?
People imagine their gods as hating the people that they hate. And it's just the problem is that once they're convinced of that and convince other people of that, then their hatred now has this deity's approval, like the almighty creator of the universe wants you to hate people. And that has a very strong effect on people.
It's not indigenous to the Christian Bible either. Remember back when in Iran, when Ahmadinejad announced that there were no homosexuals in Iran, and the rest of the world goes, hang on just a second. You may have that statistic.
Yeah, because you hung them all,
It just boggles them. I guess if you say it loud enough, it ceases to be true. Heather, thanks for your call. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks for taking my call.
I think some of it also speaks to, and I hate to say it this way, but, when it comes to people of faith, and I used to be one of them to a degree, even in a benign way, judgment comes into play. You know, when you feel like, well, whew, boy, thank God I've got the moral high ground. These poor misled people down here, they really need the fruit of my wisdom. I mean, really, it's a way for me to feel better about myself. I'm enlightened. I'm moral. I'm the one who's finally found the way, the truth, and the life. And boy, I've got to go out and try to help these and fix these broken people out there. And so now it becomes a self-edification process. I start to feel a whole lot better about me when I feel like I'm the one who's got the golden ticket. Let's go back to Travis in Houston, Texas. Hi, Travis. You are on The Thinking Atheist. What's up?
Hey, I just wanted to talk about Zinnia Jones. I've been to his channel. It's very good. I mean, he talks about objective morality and evolution and all those things. And I mean, this may be very short because it doesn't have much substance behind it, but I just wanted to say that I really like Zinnia Jones' channel. So.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you watch it. I'm glad I've created things that you enjoy and people enjoy. And that's what I like to do. I like to explore those issues in detail to at least give people something to think about and explore amongst themselves. And I think that's really important, and I'm glad that people are willing to engage with that kind of thing.
DJ, you got a guy in freaking Houston, Texas who's a fan of yours. I mean, you know,
I know, it's wonderful.
Out, man. Houston, Texas. Let's see. Phone lines are open. If you want to be a part of the show, the guest call-in number is at the top of the screen. Let's talk to Justin in Ohio. Justin, hi. You are on The Thinking Atheist.
Hello there. Well, it's just that your call screener kind of got my name wrong. My name is Dustin, D-U-S-T-I-N.
Dustin with a D. What can I do for you?
Well, first off, I want to let you know where I stand. And pretty sure you'll get this after the first 5 seconds. I'm a Christian first, conservative second, Republican third. And I know you probably rolling your eyes like, oh gosh, here it comes. But no, I'm actually pretty moderate. Listen, I tend to not enjoy the company of homosexuals. I tend to distance myself from homosexuals, and I really just don't like hanging out with them. There's a question that I usually ask homosexuals because I really can't understand their opinion on this. That is, have you ever felt ashamed? And I'm not asking that if someone else had made you ashamed or if you felt like this is something I shouldn't be doing because of an existential thing someone else is enforcing on me. Have you ever looked inside yourself and thought, this isn't normal and it's not something I should be doing based on your own merit? And I'm asking Z there. Have you ever thought about that?
That's a good question, actually. Personally, when I, introspect like that, I can't find any reason within myself why I would feel ashamed, and I've come to the conclusion that pretty much any of the feelings of shame that I've experienced because of that, which are mostly gone nowadays, I can trace them back to some kind of outside source of someone telling me that I should be ashamed. I mean, I think in the absence of all that, if no one had ever brought up the idea that there's something wrong about being gay or something you should be ashamed of or you should feel abnormal or whatnot, I don't really see why that feeling itself would come with that. So personally, from my perspective, I don't think I've ever experienced any kind of inner feeling of that. I'm pretty sure that most of the any feelings I've had like that have originated from outside and from other people, trying to convey the idea that I should be ashamed.
Yeah, that's pretty similar to most of the other responses that I get, and I'm pretty sure if I asked another 50, 100 homosexuals, they'd probably give me the same answer, which is fine. The nice thing about America is that you should be allowed to do or say or believe whatever you want to believe. And, yes, absolutely. The problem is I actually don't think that your group is the minority anymore. Well, I mean, true, you probably are the minority, and the Christian right to right apparatus probably makes up the whole, most of America. But what you guys fail to understand is that you have all the major media networks under control, the leftist control, which I assume you're probably left to center. Usually that's the argument your side makes. But all I'm saying is that you're winning and you're still playing the victim. Listen. I'm willing to concede you 2 points. When you look at God from a pure logical standpoint, it does not add up. There is no physical evidence of God. And I'm also willing to concede you another point, that religion has been used traditionally, and still is, as a catalyst for violence. But I just want to ask you one question. Mm-hmm. If you were to succeed in your goal to convert more people to atheism, and if that were to catch on like wildfire, which I think it is, with the media blowing the wind, so to speak, eventually I think people would just think of Republicans and Christians in general as being hate mongers, as if they don't already. I get that a lot. But eventually they're just going to think of us as old dinosaurs, and they're going to put us out of our misery, so to speak, politically, not actually. And eventually I think your side is probably going to win. Then what? Would we be better off not believing in any kind of God or morality complex, or would we just find something else to kill ourselves over? Traditionally, mankind has been killing other people of mankind for its entire existence. The motion.
All right, Justin. Let me jump in real fast, and I appreciate your question. He painted a very broad stroke, so let's you and I talk about that for a second, DJ. And let me go first, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. Did you know how he equated God with morality? In other words, you can't.
Yeah, I did hear that. A sort of morality complex. If there's no God, there's no morality.
And then, if he also conceded that religion is a problem, and then finally he concedes that we're winning, that people are starting to open their minds. Well, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking if someone is responding to our argument, that's a positive thing. I mean, if they're truly thinking, evaluating, rationally examining their life, and they come to the conclusion that, hey, these guys have a point, I don't see that as a negative. Do you?
That is good. I mean, I do think it's good that he's, recognized our position, that it may have somewhat a little more influence now, although I would say that overall, I don't think we wield anywhere near the amount of influence that he might think that we do. I mean, I think sometimes from the perspective of, an established majority, anytime your influence begins to wane even slightly, even if it doesn't, impinge upon your influence overall, it's still easy to perceive that as some kind of, massive upcoming threat that's soon to overtake you if it hasn't already. I mean, people do get comfortable in a position of, being in the majority, and anything that might, at least call it into question or even raise the point that there are other perspectives out there that are, equally valid, that starts to, make people think that the whole thing might come down. Like, it's like the end of the world or something.
The tide is turning, but, here in America, run for a public office, any public office, and openly state that you're an atheist. And watch how accepting the culture is for you. Politicians parade God around, not because they necessarily believe it, because they have to. I mean, there's the TV cameras showing him and his wife and his kids, and they're going to church, and you almost need an insulin shot after you see the sweetness from the images. But the truth is, it all seems contrived, it all seems manufactured. What if somebody was to come out right now and say, you know what, I don't believe in any God anywhere. By the way, I would like to be your governor.
That'd be the subject of attack ads, and and another thing you mentioned was that gay people perhaps becoming more accepted or whatnot, and to some degree we are. Just some public opinion polls reflect that it's definitely improved over the situation in the past decades, but still there is total widespread opposition to our rights, our equality under the law, and if you don't believe that, I would just say why don't you run a referendum on gay marriage in any given state? They've tried that 31 times. Guess what happens 31 times? We lose when you put it up to a public vote. and what happens during the campaigns, you get the other side running these attack ads about how if gay people are recognized equally under the law, then they're somehow a threat to your children. And every time this happens, every year they do this, we end up being vilified in these campaigns that try to portray our equality as an actual threat to children, as if we somehow are a threat. And people get frightened by that, and they vote against our rights. And I don't think in the light of that you can say that we enjoy, widespread acceptance now. Maybe it's a more superficial acceptance. Maybe it's the kind of acceptance where people, just say abstractly, oh, yeah, I don't have any problem with that. But then when their own child turns out to be gay, they freak out. And there are people like that.
Do you think people think sexuality is like a virus? Hey, if you're too close to them, you're going to catch it, kind of a thing. If you're too close to
they do it as something like anyone inherently different to them is a threat that seeks to conquer you, or something like that. It's like the mere presence of gay people is somehow poses a problem, like it's going to create issues. And I can't even imagine that, aside from just like, it must be some kind of general perspective of people who are different from you are automatically being perceived as a threat.
Back to the phones. Timothy in Charlotte. Timothy, you're on the Thinking Atheist. Hi, Timothy.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
I'm a big fan of both of your work. I'm a libertarian and, a big fan of equal rights for pretty much everyone. Therefore, don't really understand all the bigotry we have in America and the world. But I feel like a lot of that has something to do with religion, especially the Christian right in this country. But I really just wanted to touch on, ZJ, your YouTube video for remembering Alan Turing, and I really feel like that's an absolute masterpiece. And just wanted to commend you for that, and wanted to basically know if you had anything else like that in mind or in the works for the future.
I would have to think about that. I mean, there are certainly a lot of, interesting figures throughout history that deserve recognition. I mean, Turing's was really a tragic tale. He accomplished so much within his life, and you can only imagine how much more he would have accomplished if he had lived. And yet, due to this attitude of repression, even someone so valuable as him, who had contributed so much, was just disposable. And that's just awful. It's just the sort of thing that should really make people think and reevaluate their positions on that. And there have been a lot of tragic figures like that, and it's absolutely terrible. And I would, if you have any ideas, I would have to look for more of them. I'm totally willing to do more videos about that because I think it's important. It's a significant example that people need to think about.
If someone wanted to see the video that he's referring to, how would they find that on your channel?
It is called Remembering Alan Turing. If you search for that on YouTube and look under ZJemptv, you'll find it.
Thanks for the call, man. I appreciate it very much. Let's go and speak to Corey in Rochester. Hi, Corey. You were on The Thinking Atheist. What's up?
Well, what I wanted to say was that I've been an atheist since before I had a name for the thing. And the problem I've always had, even when I was young, was that there is history before the Bible. There's documented history well before the introduction of the Bible. And I kind of wonder, why more atheists don't kind of take this argument and run with it, because the Bible's introduced, at a certain time BC or 0 AD is when these critical periods occur. But there are the Egyptians who had experiences well before the introduction of Christ. And why is it that they never had an idea of the Christian God?
When you think about that, there was actually a story in The Onion called something like Sumerians Watch in Amazement as God Creates the Universe. And the thing is, when you can pin the Bible down on any actual factual matters, it usually doesn't end well for the Bible. And that's why you end up with people trying to push Genesis back far beyond, like, any part of recorded history by saying that, a day really meant like an era or something, trying to push it into the realm of unfalsifiability. But that is a good argument. Plus, what about all the civilizations that predated Judaism or even Christianity? What happened with all these people prior to Jesus coming to Earth? Were they just screwed when they died, or what? Is that just luck of the draw, you don't happen to be following the right religion culturally, or the right religion, whichever it is, hasn't even come into existence yet. And so, what, you're just screwed. And that is pretty ridiculous.
Let's go talk to Shelley in New Hampshire. Hi, Shelley. You were on the Thinking Atheist.
Hey, calling up because I was wondering if ZJ had any opinions on the Nikki Aragu's case down in Texas.
That is a good question. I've been reading up on that, and there are a lot of issues involved with it, like case law involving transgender people and marriage in Texas particularly, and, you know, are they legally defined as, you know, the gender they were assigned at birth or the gender that they were transitioned to? And I've seen conflicting, you know, case law on this. Judges, I think it was something like judges can now officially, you know, change someone's legal gender when they transition, and other people were quoting some kind of law that said this isn't possible. And there, if I recall correctly, there was some other case going on, even if it didn't involve like anyone being sued or anything, but it involved a marriage between a cisgender woman and a transgender woman, I think it was, because the transgender woman was still legally in Texas considered to be male. They could legally marry because in the eyes of the law, it was a marriage between a male and a female. And they actually had to ask the opinion of, I think it was various judges on this, and if I recall correctly, some of them declined to even address it. But however either of these cases end, it's going to end in either Texas recognizing people's transitions legally by, you know, assigning them the correct gender for them, or they won't. And it's going to be interesting, and I hope it doesn't end badly. I hope they do the right thing and allow people to legally transition. But in the Nikki Aragu's case, too, what struck me by it was that the only reason that the deceased firefighter's family, I think, was, you know, trying to cut this off was because his wife transgender. And why would he be doing that if she wasn't trans? And that's what's so striking about it. That's absolutely anti-trans discrimination, and it's totally unacceptable from my perspective.
Well, I happen to know, like, I'm trans, and I've had my name legally changed, and one of the very first things I've seen in the news, they're saying, oh, Nikki was being dishonest or what have you because she didn't tell everybody that this was her old name, but one of the first things the judge tells you as soon as you go and get your name changed is you are to cut off all ties with use of your old name.
Right.
You know?
Now, this is a weird area for me. All right, look, I'm a pretty basic guy, so you're going to have to help me out here, okay? Isn't that a weird gray area? You're born a guy and you become a woman, and now you want to be treated like a woman. You want a legal name of a woman. I mean, what's the end zone here?
I can just give you Transgender 101 here for just a couple minutes. I mean, imagine that you're a man, your brain was transplanted into a female body. You would still know that this is totally inappropriate, and you would still be a man. What you are is in your brain. You know, you would know that this wasn't right for you, and you would do whatever you could to get back to your normal situation of being a man and having your body reflect that. For trans people, as far as we understand, developmentally, it's the same thing. They end up with the brain of the opposite gender in a body that doesn't match them. And that feels just as deeply wrong for them as it would feel for you if you were suddenly in a woman's body for the rest of your life and you had to live with that. They really have to live with that.
So this goes beyond just cross-dressing and all that. I mean, this goes into...
Oh, yeah, way beyond.
I'm going to fix what's wrong with my body by changing my gender to someone else. I'm going to change my name legally, and I will be recognized not as, let's say, a man, but as a woman. And from that moment on, I will then be a woman. Is that the deal?
Pretty much. Let me ask you a question. Thinking. So, sort of in your head, a woman is somebody that has ovaries and can reproduce, correct? That in your head is what makes a woman.
Okay. Yeah, I can go there.
All right. Well, I've heard this argument many times, and my thing is let's say you started dating a girl and she didn't have ovaries. would she be any less of a woman to you than somebody that did have ovaries?
No. But I'll tell you this. If I was going out on a date and the young lady I was on a date with used to be a guy, I want to know that. You know, I don't know. I'm in my mind. I'm going to have to take this journey with you and try to cross that line. It's a very foreign area for me. I'm not saying my worst fear is that anything I say comes off as bigoted, or if nothing else, it may be just. I want to understand. You know, where does the line between a man and a woman start and end? It's just a weird spot. Where do you fall there?
I'm just a guy, actually. That's all I am. I'm just a gay guy. And sometimes I dress up flamboyantly, and that's all I am. I'm not a woman or anything, even if I'm
I'm a woman.
Right.
Used to be a man, right?
Something like that.
So, but from now on, I mean, would you, if you went on a date with somebody, if you were hanging out with somebody, does being a man in your past ever come up, ever? Or is it just, I'm a female, period?
Well, sort of for me is like, if I go to a bar, somebody wants to buy me a drink.
You there? She was just getting to the good part. We had her at the bar. Are you still there?
You see, the issue with transgender people is that disclosure is a really dicey issue. I mean, when do you tell people that? Should you tell people that? And so on. The problem is that there's often a very real threat to them. Trans people have been killed when someone finds out that they're trans. So there is actually a danger to them, and so it's always a difficult issue of finding out when to disclose, whether you should disclose, and whatnot. And going back to the Nikki Aragu's case, there were people who were actually saying that her husband didn't know that she was trans. Even, I believe it was something like she actually had gender reconstructive surgery while she was married to him. I mean, how could he not know that? But yeah, disclosure is always a difficult issue for something like this that people have such divided and sometimes even extreme opinions on. There's not always an easy answer to this.
I think for someone like me, ultimately the question has to be, are you being true to yourself and are you comfortable in your own skin?
Right. And for trans people, it's like the body that they have, that they were born with, they're not comfortable in their own skin. They feel they're not being true to themselves by, having the body that they do have. In order to be comfortable in their own skin, they end up having to change their skin as best they can. And this really does help them. The outcomes for transitioning tend to be very successful. They really do help people live their lives better than they could before.
I appreciate your call very much. Thank you so much, Shelley. It's an atheist show, but we've sort of carved ourselves a whole new niche here, and I think it's just because people
there's so many different issues.
Yeah, people are naturally curious. They just are. I think people they want to ask questions. It's funny when you're with a group of friends and you just always say, look, I've always wanted to know this. Look, don't take this wrong, but I've always wanted to ask this question, and people just feel
curiosity is good.
And I consider that a compliment. I think if someone feels comfortable enough in your presence so that they can ask you pretty much anything. Look, in fact, I wish people would do that with me about atheism rather than just go, oh my God, it's an atheist. I wish they'd sit me down and go, look, how did you get there? What's going on in your mind? What's your worldview? How do you explain morality? How can you reject the argument of complexity in this world? I wish they would just ask. And if they would ask, we'd have a chance to have a real conversation. And if we disagree at the end of the conversation, who cares? It's a busy, crazy world. We're not going to agree on anything. But we can live together. We can have a positive relationship together. And we can support each other. Wouldn't you agree?
That is very important. I mean, people need to be able to have open inquiry and critical discussion, and that's very productive. I mean, you accomplish practically nothing by just being, totally closed off and never discussing anything with other people who have different viewpoints. I mean, that's how you learn things. That's how we improve as a culture and as a society. That's very important.
Our caller, Dustin, is back on the line. He wants to share some more with us. All right. Dustin, you're on The Thinking Atheist. What's up?
I kind of got dropped before, but that's all right. I know how to talk.
No, we spent 5 minutes with you and I was done. That's what happened. But go for it. You got something else for us?
I wanted to finish up with my last point, and I wanted to make the real quick point of what I was getting to. I think both sides are blown out of proportion. I think that the Christians have, kind of made homosexuality this big evil that it really isn't. I mean, it all depends on what you believe, but there's no reason to have physical violence or outspeaking against homosexuality. But I think that your side can also concede one point. We've given you everything that you've asked for. We've given you freedom of speech. We've given you freedom of religion. We've given you civil unions, everything. But what I take issue with is that you want gay marriage.
You're saying that why would they want to be married? Because marriage is God ordained, if you believe the Bible. Is that your overall point?
Exactly so. Why is civil unions not good enough?
Marriage is not necessarily a religious thing. Religion is not an essential component of it. In our country and most countries, marriage is a matter of civil law. You can get married without the involvement of any religion at all. And another issue is if you're going to tie religion into marriage, where do all the religions that approve of gay marriage tie into this? I mean, there aren't as many of them, obviously, but does that mean that if some religions want to conduct marriages between gay couples, then that means they should allow it? I mean, where does that enter into it? And there's also the issue of civil unions. I mean, if you're going to say that civil unions should be enough for us, then why aren't they enough for you? Why is it that civil unions are supposed to be good enough for us, and yet civil unions aren't adequate for heterosexual couples? What do you need that we can't have? And that really is the sort of thing that implies some kind of fundamental inequality between straight couples and gay couples and their relationships. And the thing with civil unions is that if only gay couples can have them, gay couples can't marry, and straight people are allowed to marry, then that's just designating a separate status upon gay people. And as equal as you may try to make it under the law, it's not equal, because if it was equal, there would be no need for it to be something separate. We could just have marriage too. So what's the point of parsing it out into something separate for gay people? I mean, marriage is established as something that people recognize as just the highest expression of love between two people. It formalizes that. It's a commitment. And excluding gay people like that, it is like saying that they aren't capable of that same kind of lifetime of love and commitment and everything in the same way that straight couples are. And that's just not true. In areas where gay marriage has been legalized, there's been no problem with it. There's really just no reason not to do this. It doesn't cause any sort of widespread issues or anything when it is legalized and recognized as equal. So that's just my brief touching on all those points.
You don't have to go to a church to get married. You can go down to the courthouse. You can go to Vegas, and Elvis will marry you, for Pete's sake. I mean,
Absolutely.
Religion and marriage do not necessarily coincide. Most people, do they get married in a church? Sure. But I'll tell you, a lot of the folks who get married don't even attend the church they marry in. They just find something pretty, or they knew a guy somewhere,
Right,
or
they just jump through the hoops to get to marry in that particular church, and it's nice and everything, and then they never go back.
We got people out there everywhere like Shock of God and others who are like, prove there is no God. Not being able to disprove a God does not prove a God. Not being able to say, I absolutely can. I mean, even Dawkins himself say there's just no way to totally disprove. But I think the acid test should be this. If he was an omniscient God, an all-loving, benevolent creature, divine father figure who believed we were his most cherished children and more important to him than anything else in the universe, why in the world would he not have absolutely proven himself to us without a doubt? Why all the guessing games and the charades and the disagreement? Why does the Protestant denominations have, 30,000 different denominations alone? Not to mention the Muslims and the Buddhists and the Mormons and the Scientologists and everybody's arguing with everybody else, and everybody's right. Their God is accurate and everybody else is deceived. And meanwhile, God just sits back and does nothing. Honestly, my opinion is, if he was truly God, he would have solved the mystery a long time ago.
One of the issues with the concept of God is how often that it's redefined explicitly, and probably as part of a strategy on their part, into the realm of unfalsifiability. There is literally no state of affairs that would prove their God to be wrong or not exist. Literally anything in the world, they say that their God is a feasible explanation to that. They will always come up with another explanation to that. Whether the situation is one way or another, they've defined it so that their God will always be consistent with that. There is absolutely nothing that would, explicitly show that to be false in a lot of these concepts that they've created. And that's a really tricky thing.
Zinnia Jones, how do they find your page on YouTube for anybody who stumbles across this podcast on Blog Talk Radio or on iTunes or what have you? How do they find your work?
You can go to ZinniaJones.com.
ZINNIA, ZinniaJones.com. And also your YouTube name is?
ZJemptv.
ZJEM as in Mary, P as in Paul, TV. You're doing great work. It's funny, you and I come from these totally separate backgrounds, totally separate personality types. If we'd met on the street, we'd probably just walk right on by. And yet, thanks to the internet and thanks to the fact that we have a common belief, you and I have been able to have a great conversation, talk about things that I think are really important. It's been just a positive experience. I hope you feel the same.
Absolutely. This has been awesome. I just think it's great that we have such a community here of such diverse people that can still, band together and discuss substantive issues.
TheThinkingAtheist.com. If you want to find out more about what else is going on, you can also search for The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and on YouTube. Have a wonderful week.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. Watch dozens of original videos on The Thinking Atheist YouTube channel. And visit our website for resources, links, contact information, the editor's blog, and more. TheThinkingAtheist.com.